All right, guys, thank you for that. $7 in San Francisco.
Sweet. Give me 2.
2 gallons?
Yeah, it's all I can afford. I was filling up the other day, and you know how they have those screens that have the advertisements on the pumps? The first one up was how to take out a second mortgage on your house to pay for
gas. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for that. Right now we're going to welcome our next live guest. We've got Ryan Schreiber here with us from Metafora talking about exactly what it is to be a digital freight broker. So Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Hey, it feels like it's been a long time. And as Timbaland once said, it's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step to. So thanks for having me back. Great to see everybody. I was working on that one since last night, so I'm glad it landed. But
I love it.
That was good, brother. That was good, man.
So,
it was for you, Vincent. I was glad it was the two of y'all because I knew it would slap.
Yeah. He is the purveyor of beats in your absence.
Oh, yeah,
so, you know, we'll let him have that title. All right, Ryan, well, let's talk into a little bit of the topic of the day. Digital freight brokerage is a scary word if you're an in-person freight broker, right? You're like, someone's going to take my job and it's digital. But it shouldn't be that scary. Talk to us a little bit about what a digital freight broker is.
No, I mean, like if this was 2015 or 2016, there's a lot different conversation where sort of there wasn't a spectrum. It was either you were sort of like a digital freight broker trying to build the future, as we kind of refer to it, or you were a legacy freight broker and you had your TMS and you had a couple of other tools, but it was pretty much kind of a binary choice. It's absolutely not the case today. Today there are myriad tools out there that can enable legacy freight brokers to have digital offerings. And the key to your point about being sort of scary to the seat level user, the key is just in how you set it up and making sure that you have kind of these discrete focus areas for technology and what technology is going to work on. And then, what humans will spend their time doing, which should be, right, the things that humans are best at: problem solving, nonlinear thinking, relationship building, stuff like that, while digital tools focus on executing the transaction and surfacing offers and options to humans.
Yeah, so Ryan, let's get through this, because back in the day, as you were describing, and 2015 unbelievably is kind of back in the day, right?
I don't know if that's back in the day. For you and me, Vincent, I don't know. Let's not call that back in the day. Kaylee might have still been in high school, but you and me, come on, we were slinging freight.
No, back in the day is 2000, is 1985 is back in the day for me, when electricity meant that you were digital, right? You got rid of your rotary phone, and therefore you were a digital broker at that time, right? Because you had the push buttons. But, back in the day, you're digital, it didn't mean anything. It was like, okay, what do you mean? Now you fax things instead of, or what does that mean? Right. But now it means quite a bit now. There's a lot to it. What are those benefits for those that are out there, those legacy type of brokers, because they're still out there, that are out there they're pounding those phones, and they like where they're at, and they believe that their customers like that touch. You don't have to lose that touch. There's benefits to this.
Yeah,
digital,
absolutely. Right? Listen, I mean, God, there's a million things I could say about this because it's something I'm really passionate about. But technology doesn't have to be, kind of like at odds with the human. And Vincent, to your point, like there are myriad benefits for it, especially for the person in the seat, if it's all set up the right way, right? And the hardest part about trucking and brokerage, transportation sort of broadly, is dealing with sort of the ebbs and the flows of the level of work, right? You have no idea when you walk in the door. Some days you are going to be just out of your mind. It's going to be problem after problem. There's going to be, you're not even going to be able to go to the restroom if you have to when you walk in at 7 a.m. Mm-hmm. Right. And then there's other days where like things are fine. Like, it's never boring, but like things are fine. And you can deal with that kind of workload. And the issue is kind of dealing with that variability. And technology can really help provide that user experience for your internal folks, increase the quality of service to your customers, because your internal users are able to focus more on solutioning, on problem solving, et cetera. But from a very tangible benefit as business owners, the real value is in lowering your cost to serve. I think the biggest question that we get from time to time is, should I worry about competing in a low margin future? I mean, ever since I've been in the industry, everybody's been talking about margin compression's coming, compression's coming. It's almost become the boy who cried wolf. And my answer and our answer in Metaphora is always the same. Who cares? Think about competing in a low margin future. Figure out how to compete at lower margins, because if you need to, if that comes up, if margin compression finally shows up, great, you survived as a business. Like, you were able to do that. You know, if you were able to survive on 6-7% margins. But if not, so what? You either have price elasticity, where you can price freight more competitively to buy market share. You have a more profitable business. You can pay your people more. You can pay your carriers more to buy better quality capacity. There are all of those benefits that go along with it. And so lowering your cost to serve, technology is part of that. Operating model is part of that. Staffing plans are part of that. That's all kind of tied up in this concept.
So Ryan, I want to frame the digital broker in the scape of where kind of labor is going right now. We're seeing a ton of companies start to scale back their labor, saying we hire too fast. We've got too many people on our floor. We're laying off a significant chunk of our staff. If you are someone who's in brokerage, right, and you kind of have a handle on the digital side of things while also still being that in-person, doing your job and really kind of working both sides of it, you're really setting yourself up for success because you are strong on both sides, right? And you are a valuable asset to your team. So do you think that being adept and being into the digital brokerage side of things can really set you apart and really be helpful when it comes time to look at, like, okay, who are we cutting? Who are we not cutting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it should get you in a situation where you are, as I was talking about before, sort of with a lower cost to serve and what we would call price elasticity. It should get you into a situation where you are not having to make as many cuts. Okay, now the first person that's sitting at home watching this who wants to be sort of the like, well, I still have I never even bought a fax machine. I still mail my, customers' invoices.
They're out there. That
person's going to say, totally. And I see them a lot, and they like hound me on social media, but that person's going to say, well, the digital ones are the ones who are making all of these big cuts. And there's something to be said for that in terms of kind of like that spectrum that I was talking about before, kind of like all digital versus kind of like all in person. And Grace Sharkey, I believe, I don't know if it's today that this article is coming out, but she was asking me about some of these cuts that have been coming in these digital and tech companies and what have you. So I highly recommend checking that out. But Kaylee, to your point, like, absolutely, that should factor into it. Again, in that concept of variability, right? So brokerages and trucking companies, they overhire because they need to be able to deal with that variability, whether it's seasonal or whether it's growth driven or what have you. That is the hardest part of building a transportation company because of the financials, right? If your operating ratio is anywhere between, 93 and 100, let's say, which most trucking companies and brokerages are, even ones that aren't in growth mode, right? Then you don't have a lot of free cash to hire and to have those people sort of be, unproductive. And so if you're not hitting your kind of numbers, if there's any dip, you've got to suddenly be in a situation where you say, oh crap, 97% of $100 is a lot more than 97% of $75. And that can be the variability, if you will, as you think about, just for the sake of round numbers, what some of these companies are dealing with when you get into a deflationary rate environment.
Yeah, unbelievable. Let me ask you one last question. I think we have a quick minute for one last question. You're talking about all the benefits that are there, right? And you can reduce, you can become more efficient, or you can widen your margin. In effect, what you're doing is, just plan for tighter margins. And if you're successful, you're actually widening your margin right now, so you've got that flexibility. Okay, that sounds like you should. I'm a CEO. You're trying to sell me. I know it's hard to believe, but you are. Well, how do I calculate that ROI? Show me, Ryan.
Luckily, I read a lot of science fiction, so like kind of the fantastical is something I'm very comfortable with.
Yes, sure.
I was actually just sitting on that joke, and I missed the end of your question, but I think it was, what should you do?
Well, no, I'm just saying, how do you explain the ROI, this theoretical ROI? Is it hard in that sale, in those the CEOs that are watching going, yeah.
It all comes down to your cost to serve. Look, at the end of the day, it all comes down to how much does it cost you to move a load? How much does it cost you to acquire that load from your customer, which is, customer acquisition cost is a part of that. If you're moving freight transactionally, load acquisition cost is going to be a part of that. How much does it cost you to actually service that load, to appoint it, to assign a driver to it if you're a carrier, or match a truck if you're a broker, things like that. How much does it cost you to bill your customer, to pay that carrier, et cetera? Really, everything is tied up in this concept of cost to serve. And that can seem really hard. Most companies aren't measuring their cost to serve, and that's okay. I mean, that's fine. There are some really easy, low-hanging fruit ways to do it. Just do some simple math. Yeah. How many loads a day are you moving? How much money are you spending on people and technology combined? That's a function of your cost to serve. And so how do you lower that? And the biggest kind of issue in getting that ROI from what we've seen is kind of intentional applications of this technology. Yes. Not getting sold something, right? Not getting sold a shiny object, but actually it starts with the business. How do we want to win? What do we want to do? How are we going to apply this technology in our business? How are we willing to change as a business to be better? And then getting the software that makes sense for you and your strategy, not what the Joneses are doing.
Yeah. See, I've got to apply that in my life. I always just buy the shiny object. It's so wrong.
Yeah, I'm there too.
I know a guy who sells some really nice guitar picks that I would highly recommend, regardless of whether
Excellent. Word of the day from Ryan Schreiber, Myriad. We'll be right back. We're going to go to a quick break. Thank you, my friend.